Hello and welcome to What's Up Punk, where we take a look at the myriad of subgenres and subcultures underneath that umbrella of punk. Today we'll be taking a look at Stitchpunk. What if Sackboy was brought to life through alchemy in the post-apocalypse? That is Stitchpunk. This one's been in the rotation for a while. What is Stitchpunk? First, we gotta clarify some stuff. Stitchpunk is a genre, but it's also a species. So let's cover that first. Stitchpunks are a race of homunculi.
Homunculi?
Yeah. It's plural for homunculus. It's a tiny miniature person.
That's not even a dig. Like, they are the closest to a biblical depiction of a homunculi I have seen. They little and based on or a part of a human soul. I mean, this is still the GOAT, but you'll love to see it. Crafted with a metal endoskeleton, their most noticeable feature and what the name comes from is their skin of burlap, or other chosen fabric for the top covering, and the material holding the body structure together. A Stitchpunk cannot come to life until a soul fragment has been transferred into the Stitchpunk. So they're not to say the possessed animatronics of FNAF infamy, or the bio-experiments of Poppy's Playtime, or the what if Sesame Street was cancelled by the Vietnam War of My Friendly Neighbor, or whatever reality-burning foobar of Welcome Home. Can we go back to cryptids and zombos and slashers for our horror? Nothing against any of this. Welcome Home is magical, but I'd like a bit more Midwest Angelica if we could, because the saturation is over. Now, Stitchpunk as a genre is mostly confined to the works of Acker and Burton's short film and the extension of that short film called 9, a 2009 CGI film inspired by surrealist German animation that desperately wants to be an adventure game. Me saying that is weirdly prescient.
I think it would make a great video game. They actually started one, but the company, I guess, fell apart or something, so they stopped making it. Although I think their rights are back.
But yeah, someone agreed with me and saw this movie that desperately wanted to be an adventure game and on a DS or console and tried to do that. Besides the crappy mobile game and the canceled games, it's been extended by its cult film lone fans in forum RPGs and the 9-inspired TTRPG Threadbear, post-apoc teddy bear tabletop game. Bless it, this gig never disappoints. Technology.
Our blind pursuit of technology only sped us quicker to our doom.
Magitech, mostly through the form of alchemy, in the creation of the titular Stitchpunks. Mostly unseen in the film, each Stitchpunk insides are filled with a mechanical skeleton, fabric is over it, like we covered before, the exceptions being the hands, feet, and eyes. In the film, each of the 9 Stitchpunks are given a small piece of their human creator's soul to bring them to life, thus embedding with specific aspects of his personality. Canonically, Stitchpunks appear to have no need of food, water, or sleep, as none of them are seen engaging in the act. Maybe because they are completely mechanical. However, because of the soul bonding, they are capable of feeling fear, happiness, and pain. It's just their bodies, like those of Mecha, Socks, and Softies of Threadbear, are more durable than those of flesh and blood. No matter how we're running this scenario, either with toys or Sackboys, with the world being breathtakingly fucked, everybody's gotta be looking like Sid's toys from Toy Story after a while. Bring us to the other punk genre that was never brought up through all the articles I went through, but really should have been, as an inspiration for Stitchpunk, Junkpunk. Not going into it, a whole nother video on that, but vanity and very gritty.
And I lit his house on fire. He came home on acid, I was holding his shotgun. I was dressed like Tina Turner in Beyond Thunderdome.
If the whole world's trashed, then the whole world is recyclable, seen mostly in the Stitchpunks themselves cannibalizing the world, and the aggressive forces of
The machine.
using whatever it can to extinguish the last remnants of life on the planet, or recombine with its own soul. Yeah, its own motivations are left heavily to interpretation, but one thing we know,
The machine!
will use anything to rebuild its forces, including the corpses of the dead. On a slightly less creepy note,
the ragdoll finishes with her panda patient and wishes him a cheery farewell, tucking his payment, 2 buttons and a tiny watch gear, into her skirt pocket. She quickly schools her face to hide her sly, greedy smile when she steps across the threshold to the waiting bulldozer. His repair is going to need glue, and glue is a costly resource, my friend.
In the world of Threadbear, junk is the name of the game. You play as a jerry-rigged toy in a broken world, where entropy is a constant danger. You'll patch yourself up, invent new devices, and make some friends along the way. So less going on a quest to save the kingdom from a dragon, to more Toy Story-esque shenanigans about getting from point A to point B and what we gotta break or fix to get there. Aesthetic.
Don't you like the new scarf?
Not especially.
The world is gritty, lifeless, and dark, the rubble of society that became, in Acker's words, obsessed with machines and technology. The Third Reich-inspired dictatorship that resulted in the apocalypse suggests that this was a terrifying world long before the machine took over and began exterminating human beings, mostly in the creation of old bird-ish mechs. In an interview with Gone with the Twins, Acker spells out his own punk influences.
I'm a big fan of steampunk. I love the Jules Vernean, turn-of-the-century design aesthetic. It celebrates mechanics, but at the same time, there's a kind of ornamentation. I think it's really beautiful and expressive and visual. I wanted to bring that to the world. It's as if the Industrial Revolution had progressed another 300 years and we hadn't gone into the digital age. There's sort of computer technology, but it's all mechanical. If the Victorian era were to collapse in some post-apocalyptic event, then these creatures are made from all the bits and pieces that are left over. That's the idea behind Stitchpunk. It's not steampunk which fell away, but the bits and pieces of steampunk that got stitched together.
As a punk chronicler, I would be remiss not to add that Anchor so did not pull from anything resembling steampunk for this movie, and that it is very much an offshoot of dieselpunk, because of the Germans and trench warfare. But it was the middle of the late 2000s when the film student was working on this. I'll let it slide. Hell, most people still only know cyber and steam. 9 is rife with references from that time period that dieselpunk is cribbing from. From the tattered red fascist flags to the landscape reminiscent of Normandy after the invasion, or Dresden after the bombing. Bycraftian in setting, the world going stagnant due to widespread war generally is due to society grinding to a halt, this time just flat out not existing anymore. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Threadbear was apparently a nicer apocalypse. Hell, there's literally a Candyland. Humans just disappeared and presumably became toys. Stitchpunk's visual aesthetic is made up of many parts and ideas. Sewing chic, dark and whimsical, stitches against machines, handmade horror, breathing life into the animate, and unraveling the mysteries.
Does this look inanimate to you, punk?
See a lot of Burton and Selick movies, more examples of this kind of aesthetic. Platonian philosophy plays a role in Stitchpunk. Some philosophers, such as Plato, often thought of a soul as compounds of various elements, each carrying out a specific function. Unfortunately, in some people, one aspect of soul may dominate the person. Acker states that in this film deals with this propensity human beings have to keep trying to destroy themselves.
I think a lot of interest that I'm having as this film is developing now is speaking about these war-torn landscapes and the tragedy of war and how history is just
Endless walks of war, peace, and revolution continues.
we constantly repeat ourselves and we don't learn. And I think it's in some sense instinctual in humanity itself to sort of self-destruct or to try to destroy itself.
If all we have at the end of 9 is just the same old human soul, one that is instinctively self-destructive, giving life to the world again, how we know we're not heading yet to another dystopia. But the film seems to suggest that the problem is not with the human soul itself, but with allowing one aspect of soul to dominate. One, for example, is dominated by the desire to lead. The world needs leaders, but when the desire to lead becomes more than love and sacrifice, the result is tyranny. If all parts of the soul were thoroughly integrated, a kind of balance would be achieved, so that the various parts of the soul would teach us how to behave appropriately in various situations. The Stitchpunk themselves only really work best when they are part of a unit. 9, while not being a perfect soul because no such thing exists, has the various aspects of the scientist in balance. This carries over to 9's offshoot, Threadbear. Each part of the toy's body is animated by a living soul. With that, when one section of the body is removed, it still has portions or a complete human soul. For repair, or lack of a better term, a remnant is added to the greater whole of the Stitchpunk soul. Aspects of the Stitchpunk's personality and soul change or added with it. the Broom, my old friend. Good to see you again. But seeing as we are in cult movie circles, why not the hatchet?
On one bitter winter day, you use said axe to behead a man. Don't worry, the man's already dead. Dropping off his head because even with 8 bullet holes in him, you're pretty sure he's about to spring back to his feet. You now have a broken axe, so you go to the hardware store. The repaired axe sits undisturbed in your house until the next spring when one rainy morning. So you grab your trusty axe and chop the thing into several pieces. On the last blow, however, of course, a chipped head means yet another trip to the hardware store. As soon as you get home with your newly headed axe, though, you meet the reanimated body of the guy you beheaded last year. Only he's got a new head. So you brandish your axe.
That's the axe that slayed me.
Is he right?
Is he right? Or, my question to the question, does it matter? Is it a better hatchet than before? Where did Stitchpunk start?
How could I possibly have been born from someone as stupid as you?
Remember that Gone with the Twins article? In it, Acker says,
I wish I could say I came up with Stitchpunk, but I didn't. It was someone on a blog, but it really hit the nail on the head.
Also, because I'm that bitch, the blog in question is either stitchpunkcentral.blogspot.com or Boing Boing. Anyway, yeah, 9, both the short and the actual film, is the beginnings of this one. I mean, you could make the argument that illustrations from the melancholy death of Oyster Boy features sack puppet characters and sharp edges like the Pincushion Queen. Maybe the story itself was an inspiration for 9 as an ancestor, but let's give Ackers his due. 9, the first film, 9 was originally supposed to just be 3 minutes, but was later extended to 10. It was meant to be a stop-motion film, but was later made using CGI. Old school PS1 horror fans will notice that Ackers employed an old trick. A lot of backgrounds and textures were 2D renders that the 3D puppets and objects then were overlaid onto. He also got the eye of one Tim Burton. In that time in between becoming a household name, and I'm clearly working through some child trauma period that we're all trying to forget. In the short, 9 and 5 are the last 2 Stitchpunks remaining after the Beast has worked his way through the other 7, collecting their souls. 9 uses the sack of his fallen comrade 5 after he is struck down as well as a distraction to slay the Beast, and gives his comrades the rest they deserve. All the elements that would grow into Stitchpunk genre are here and started here. Humanity within the machines, tempering the machines with morality, empathy, compassion, opposed to machines that lack that humanity, and non-traditional synth life walking the wastelands. Real life Stitchpunks.
Some things in this world are better left where they lie. But if you know where to look, these ruins are full of riches.
The 9 forum is the first and longest running fan site and forum of the 2009 animated film 9. While there have been groups on DeviantArt and other small fan sites, the majority of fans congregated on the 9 forum. The tropes and fandom culture of the 9 fandom frequently rose from the threads of this forum. It thrived for many years after films were released, though mostly inactive in the 2020s. Stitchpunk also still has a very loyal fan base on Reddit at the time of making this video. While the 9 forum was the first, what we'll be focusing on this section is the source. The source was the first 9 forum dedicated just to roleplay, created in July of 2009 by admin Nikki, aka the Forum Warden, aka Cool Guy, who also frequented the 9 forum. It was then opened to members in August. Nikki seems to have left it in 2010. 2 years later, the forum would move to the source hereafter, and did significantly less well than the original forum, closing up in 2013. There seemed to have been an attempt to bring it back in 2016, but it never went anywhere. While its time in operation was brief, these Stitchpunks took the world of 9 and ran with it.
In the years after the abolition of man, the chaos of war had begun to fade into the bleak shadows of subversion and fear. The first few years offered peace for the ragdolls who harbored the last traces of humanity in their souls. Many wandered, seeking purpose and repose, while others settled down and began to form alliances from the scattered population. As Stitchpunks flocked to the factions, land has been claimed and lines drawn. Rivalries between the alliances have been formed as danger grew and supplies became few and far between. As fear and uncertainty kindle in the souls of the remnants of humanity, the Fabricator's factory looms in the horizon, a storm brewing in the forbidden place. This is the age we now live in, where life struggles to exist in a world of material and metal.
The Stitchpunks are split into 4 different factions, all of which are just seeking to survive. The factions were Saviors, Rogues, Loners, Racketeers, and Traitors. Users could also roleplay as canon characters and machines, not just Stitchpunks. The majority of users on and before September 16, 2009 chose to have characters in the Savior faction. Some interesting fan-in to come out of the source was there's no physical difference between male and female Stitchpunks, at least in the world of the source. Gender is a concept that exists purely in the mind of the individual, while genders are generally based off the memories of being male or female as a human. It is possible for a Stitchpunk who doesn't remember their past to gravitate towards a gender that seems the most fit them. Some have even chosen to be bi-gender, meaning they act more feminine or masculine depending on the situation. Average Stitchpunks can generally live as long as they want, as long as they keep their bodies healthy and in good condition, and have a strong alchemic bond to their body. While immortality might seem tempting to some, others might choose to live as long as their body may last, then die. Due to the high mortality rate of Stitchpunks because of the machines and the other such dangers of the waste, overpopulation isn't considered an issue. Also, while not needing to eat or drink, oil can get them drunk just as magnets can get them high. What, racketeers have to racketeer something? My recommendations. Nine, movie and short. It's got cult status for a reason, and not just because Elijah Wood is in it and everything he's in gets cult following. Not going into detail because, well, this is basically the only thing I've talked about this whole video. You can catch the short for free on the Internet Archive. How do I feel about Stitchpunk? Sorry, we are post-Christmas, post-Valentine's Day, and I am Tim burnt out. As stated in many videos, I have a type. That type likes Burton. While not one of his solo works, the gloomy, exaggerated style is close enough to trigger my apathy. While it's not my particular cup of tea, I don't hate it, and I see why 9 inspired a whole genre. Talk to me in 4 months, my position will probably change. Maybe. It's also because, like a lot of punk genres I've covered, I want more. This is not a bad idea. It's something I would never think of. Action figure-sized people in a post-human apocalypse. However, I only had 2 things to draw from, and I really felt immersed in the concept. It's why, despite being the 4th or 5th punk genre on my list, it was consistently being pushed back. I wanted to give it time to cook, but needs must when the devil drives. Well, this has been What's Up Punk. Until next time, put on some tunes while you're skateboarding through the streets. Keep up the masquerade and dance with the witchy woman, but keep on being a no good, dirty punk.
You know it, you love it, here's the spiel, let's do it. Hit subscribe to be my subscriber. Hit the bell so you know when I've actually posted stuff. Still no idea why those 2 things are separate now, but whatever. And of course, hit like to appease the algorithm gods. All fear and praise. On a list of whatever YouTubes, I am also probably not going to get any ad revenue for these videos, so if you would be so kind, check out that Patreon and the GoFundMe. Links in the description.